Hi, this is Paul, and this is Rough Draft for Sunday, where I run through the current version of my Sunday sermon. I've been pounding down books about 19th century papacy and the Papal States and the unification of Italy. I'm finding the moment in history fascinating in terms of all of the chatter about politics and religion in America today. A lot of Americans want to talk about Christian nationalism. Well, here in the 19th century, in the middle of Italy, the Pope himself was the terrestrial ruler of the Papal States. And a lot happened. There was, in fact, a revolt in 1849 that the Pope fled. He eventually would be put back into power because of the intervention of Austrian and French troops. And once his reign was restored, he came out with one of the most controversial documents ever out of the modern Roman Catholic Church, often called the Syllabus of Errors. The pontiff made full use of his spiritual arsenal as well. In December 1864, he issued what would become one of the most important encyclicals of modern times, Quanta Cura, with an accompanying syllabus of errors. No Catholic, he warned, could believe in freedom of speech, freedom of the press, or freedom of religion. Catholics had to believe that the Pope must rule over a state of his own. All Catholics, he declared, were bound to reject the view that the Roman pontiff can and should reconcile himself to progress, liberalism, and modern civilization. Visiting Rome in early 1869, the American poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow found the city beleaguered and depressing. I look out of the window to this gray, rainy day, he told an American friend, and see the streets all mud and the roofs all green mold and the mist lying like a pall over the lower town, and Rome seems to me like King Lear staggering in the storm and crowned with weeds. What most struck Longfellow was how little Rome had changed in the 40 years since he had first visited. An observation he shared in his meeting with Cardinal Antonelli. He was the Secretary of State for the Vatican at that point, and one of the most powerful figures in Pope Pius IX's cabinet, as you will. His answer to this was, "Yes, thank God," replied the Cardinal, pausing to put a pinch of snuff into his nose. By 1870, the French would give up backing the Pope. The French were being beaten by the Prussians, and soon Paris would be surrounded. The Austrians had also lost a war to the Prussians and were in no mood to try to retake the now nearly unified Italy. Rome would be taken by the Italians, and, well, things would change to the point that most of us today don't imagine the Pope rules over anything terrestrial much beyond the Vatican. And not until really the Islamic revolt, the Islamic revolution in Iran, have we seen, and the Saudis, sort of a theocracy. That's the word that's usually put out there. But in many ways, it's sort of what we see in the Old Testament. God gives Israel the law. God gives laws and punishment for these laws. God judges a rebellious generation to die in the desert. And that's the book of Numbers. And God raises up a new generation to take the promised land. But after a successful initial success of Joshua, the wheels come off in the book of Judges. Canaanite influence, including the Baals, gets deep into Israelite religiosity. There's the corruption of Israel's judges, and Israel, by the end of the book of Judges, is as bad as Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, as we noticed last week, we've seen, and 2 weeks before, we've seen the question of there's individual transformation. We saw that in Moses. But can we see a collective body transformed? And actually, even throughout Christian history, there have been many attempts at this. Of course, the Papal States were in some ways supposed to be exactly what the world would emulate, but the Papal States, well, they would rise up and revolt fairly often because they protested rule by priests. They hated it. But Calvin in Geneva would try to establish a holy city. The New England Puritans would come over, and again they would try to establish a holy city in New England. And in some ways, every church is an experiment of this. We've got individual transformation, but we're looking for a collective body of transformation. But all such experiments seem to stumble. Now, God is quite clear in the book of Exodus. You are to be a holy priesthood, a kingdom of priests, and a holy nation. That's what Israel is to be. In the book of Ruth, God is clearly keeping at it, and there's a glimmer of hope after the disaster of the book of Judges, where this Moabitess woman, who is in many ways more righteous than her mother-in-law, who she follows back to Bethlehem and becomes the wife of Boaz, and new hope is born. But in the time of Judges, there was a certain man from Ramathaim, a Zuphite from the hill country of Ephraim, whose name was Elkanah, son of Jehoram, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, an Ephraimite. And he had two wives. One was named Hannah and the other Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had none. Year after year, this man went up from his town to worship and sacrifice to the Lord Almighty at Shiloh, where Hophni and Phinehas, the two sons of Eli, were priests of the Lord. Whenever the day came for Elkanah to sacrifice, he would give portions of the meat to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he gave a double portion because he loved her, and the Lord had closed her womb. Because the Lord had closed Hannah's womb, her rival kept provoking her in order to irritate her. This went on year after year. Whenever Hannah went up to the house of the Lord, her rival provoked her till she wept and would not eat. Her husband Elkanah would say to her, "Hannah, why are you weeping? Why won't you eat? Why are you downhearted? Do I not mean more to you than 10 sons?" And clearly, the obvious answer from Hannah is no. Sons was how a Hebrew woman gained status. Sons was her validation. Sons were her future. Once when they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh, Hannah stood up. Now Eli the priest was sitting on his chair by the doorpost of the Lord's house. In her deep anguish, Hannah prayed to the Lord, weeping bitterly. And she made a vow, saying, "Lord Almighty, if you will only look on your servant's misery and remember me and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head." Now, the firstborn son would be dedicated to the Lord, but that was part of the mission of the tribe of the Levites. They were a substitute for the firstborn sons. But Hannah wanted children so badly, she said, "Lord, if you give me a son, this son will be the first fruits, and I will give him to you exclusively, and he will make a vow to serve you in a special way all the days of his life." Mom's making a pretty big vow for her son. As she kept on praying to the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was praying in her lips, and in her heart, and her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. Eli thought she was drunk and said to her, "How long are you going to stay drunk? Put away your wine." "Not so, my lord," Hannah replied. "I am a woman who is deeply troubled. I have not been drinking wine or beer. I've been pouring my heart out to the Lord. Do not take your servant for a wicked woman. I've been praying here out of my great anguish and grief." Eli answered, "Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you have asked of him." She said, "May your servant find favor in your eyes." Then she went on her way and ate something, and her face was no longer downcast. Early the next morning they arose and worshipped before the Lord, and then went back to their home in Ramah. Elkanah made love to his wife Hannah, and the Lord remembered her. So in the course of time, Hannah became pregnant and gave birth to a son, and she named him Samuel, saying, "Because I asked the Lord for him." When her husband Elkanah went up with his family to offer annual sacrifices to the Lord and to fulfill his vow, Hannah did not go. She said to her husband, "After the boy is weaned, I will take him and present him before the Lord, and he will live there always." This is a big deal. Do what seems best to you. It's a big deal that Elkanah granted this. Stay here until you have weaned him. Only may the Lord make good his word. So the woman stayed at home and nursed her son until she had weaned him. After he was weaned, she took the boy with her, young as he was, along with a 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour, and a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. When the bull had been sacrificed, they brought the boy to Eli, and she said to him, "Pardon me, my lord. As surely as you live, I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord. I prayed for this child, and the Lord granted me what I asked of him. Now I give him to the Lord. For his whole life he will be given over to the Lord." And he worshiped the Lord there. We begin to see the seeds of faithful and unfaithful Israel. Unfaithful Israel died in the desert. A new generation arises, but they soon forget. And in the book of Judges are perpetually bound into slavery. The Lord delivers them, bound they go back and forth and back and forth. These two groups live together like weeds among the wheat. And then they left the boy at Shiloh, at the tabernacle, with Eli. Then Elkanah went home to Ramah, but the boy ministered before the Lord under Eli the priest. Eli's sons were scoundrels. They had no regard for the Lord. Each year his mother made him a little robe and took it to him when she went up with her husband to offer the annual sacrifice. Eli would bless Elkanah and his wife, saying, "May the Lord give you children by this woman to take the place of the one she prayed for and gave to the Lord." Then they would go home, and the Lord was gracious to Hannah. She gave birth to 3 sons and 2 daughters. Meanwhile, the boy Samuel grew up in the presence of the Lord. Now Eli, who was very old, heard about everything his sons were doing to all of Israel, and how they slept with the women who served at the entrance to the tent of meeting. So he said to them, "Why do you do such things? I hear from all the people about these wicked deeds of yours. No, my sons, the report I hear spreading among the Lord's people is not good. If one person sins against another, God may mediate for the offender, but if anyone sins against the Lord, who will intercede for them?" His sons, however, did not listen to their boy's rebuke, for it was the Lord's will to put them to death. And the boy Samuel continued to grow in stature and in favor with the Lord and with his people. It seems like this boy Samuel is a substitute not just for the future sons that Hannah has, but even for the sons of Eli. The boy Samuel ministered before the Lord under Eli. In those days, the word of the Lord was rare. There were not many visions. One night, Eli, whose eyes had become so weak that he could barely see, was lying down in his usual place. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the house of the Lord, where the ark of God was. Then the Lord called Samuel. Samuel answered, "Here I am." And he ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." But Eli said, "I did not call you. Go back and lie down." So he went and lay down. Again the Lord called, "Samuel." Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." "My son," Eli said, "I did not call you. Go back and lie down." Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord. The word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. A third time the Lord called, "Samuel." And Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, you called me." Then Eli realized that the Lord was calling the boy. So Eli told Samuel, "Go and lie down, and if he calls you, say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went and lay down in his place. The Lord came and stood there, calling as the other times, "Samuel, Samuel." Then Samuel said, "Speak, for your servant is listening." And the Lord said to Samuel, "See, I'm about to do something in Israel that will make the ears of everyone who hears about it tingle. At that time I will carry out against Eli everything I spoke against his family from beginning to end. For I told him I would judge his family forever because of the sin he knew about. His sons blasphemed God, and he failed to restrain them. Therefore I swore to the house of Eli, the guilt of Eli's house will never be atoned for by sacrifice or offering. Samuel lay down until morning, and then opened the doors of the house of the Lord. And he was afraid to tell Eli the vision. But Eli called him and said, Samuel, my son. Samuel answered, Here I am. What was it that he said to you? Eli asked. Do not hide it from me. May God deal with you, be it ever so severely, if you hide from me anything he told you. So Samuel told him everything, hiding nothing from him. Then Eli said, He is the Lord. Let him do what is good in his eyes. Project Israel has fallen apart. The sacrificial gift of a distraught woman, a little boy, is given to the house of the Lord. And although Eli didn't raise his own sons well, he raised Samuel to hear the voice of the Lord. And it will be through Samuel that Israel will be put back on the path, and the project will start again. The Lord was with Samuel as he grew up, and he let none of Samuel's words fall to the ground. And all Israel from Dan to Beersheba recognized that Samuel was attested as a prophet of the Lord. And the Lord continued to appear at Shiloh, and there he revealed himself to Samuel through his word. And Samuel's word came to all Israel. There again was hope. Now it would be different. Samuel, of course, would anoint Saul, and Saul would be a mess. Saul would reign 40 years. Saul would fall, and the next anointing of David would take, and a kingdom would be established. That kingdom also would not be perfect. Rise and fall, rise and fall, rise and fall. New eras, new dispensations, through lines, yet things change. We ride through these things. Secular comes from the Latin seculum. It basically means one old man's lifetime, 100 years. One man or one woman can change the trajectory of a nation. Moses, Ruth, and Samuel. Things change. People die. What is to happen? We try to establish institutions to settle things, but even they, in the age of decay, rise and fall. We use institutions to extend influence beyond the seculum. Our institutions, like us, however, struggle. They too are subject to the age of decay. They become corrupt. Sometimes they produce exactly the opposite of what they intend to preserve. There's always a new vision, but will it last? The dream of a unified Italy had come to pass. Uncensored newspapers would now appear. One of the first, on September 23, captured the delirious mood. After 15 centuries of darkness, of mourning, of misery and pain, Rome, once the queen of all the earth, has again become the metropolis of a great state. Today, for us Romans, is a day of inscrutable joy. Today in Rome, freedom of thought is no longer a crime, and free speech can be heard within its walls without fears of the Inquisition, of burnings at the stake or the gallows. The light of civil liberty that, arising in France in 1789, has brightened all Europe, now shines as well on the eternal city. For Rome is only today, for Rome, it is only today that the Middle Ages are over. Now, some listening to this video will say, we want the Middle Ages back. Rise and fall, rise and fall. We think we go back to something, but actually, it's not the same as it was. Things have changed. Many who would wish the stability of the Middle Age village also want the freedom of expression, the freedom of religion, and the freedom of the press. On and on we go. The mood of the Pope's defenders was glum, yet they were not without their own hopes for the future. drawing comfort from the knowledge that Rome had been overrun by invaders many times before. In each case, God had made sure that the holy city was restored to its divinely ordained owners. Its enemies, his enemies, brought low. Since 1870, Rome has been the capital of a secular nation. What are we to think of that? The Pope would no longer be the prisoner of Rome when he finally established a concordat, ending his confinement, self-imposed confinement, and that concordat was with Mussolini. Rise and fall, up and down, searching for heavenly state here. The book of Hebrews says this: all these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on earth. People who say such things show that they are looking for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they could have had the opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. Those of you who know the book of Samuel will know, well, you skipped something. That woman, that Hannah, the mother of Samuel, who gave so sacrificially and received back, sang a song after Samuel was born. That song rings through the Bible. It's in some ways a glorious song, but it's also a difficult song. The bows of the warrior are broken, but those who stumble are armed with strength. Those who were full hire themselves out for food, but those who were hungry are hungry no more. She who was barren has borne 7 children, but she who had many sons finds a way. The Lord brings death and makes alive. He brings down to the grave and raises up. The Lord sends poverty and wealth. He humbles and he exalts. He raises the poor from the dust and lifts the needy from the ash heaps. He seats them with princes and has them inherit a throne of honor. For the foundations of the earth are the Lord's, and on them he has set the world. He will guard the feet of his faithful servants, but the wicked will be silenced in the place of darkness. It is not by strength that one prevails. Those who oppose the Lord will be broken. The Most High will thunder from heaven. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. In such a world, Jesus hangs on a cross. The sign above him saying, King of the Jews. And for 2,000 years, we've pondered this king. He rose from the dead, showing that no Roman cross can hold him or keep him in the grave. Yet he admonishes all of us to pick up our cross and follow. My heart rejoices in the Lord. In the Lord my horn is lifted high. My mouth boasts over my enemies, for I delight in your deliverance. There is no one holy like the Lord. There is no one beside you. There is no rock like our God. Do not keep talking proudly, or let your mouth speak arrogance. For the Lord is a God who knows, and by him deeds are weighed. Amen.